What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back on the video. It's Saturday, so time to take a look back at the previous week, talk about the most important news out of training camps. I'm testing out a slightly different strategy this week. Let me know what you think. If you like it, leave a like. Basically, instead of jumping around different bits of news, we're just going to go team by team, talk about the most important takeaways over the past week. It's going to be a long one. Sit back, hit the like button. Let's get things started off with the Atlanta Falcons. Nothing big really happened, but we have that one report that they said Tyler Algier is going to have a big role this season. He's going to be someone that they lean on at times. That has made people kind of freak out about Bijan Robinson. I truly would not worry about these comments. Bijan's going to get plenty of touches. There are no true just featured backs in the NFL this season, or there haven't been for years, realistically. You've got Braylon Allen backing up Breece Hall. You've got one of Mason or Mitchell. We'll talk about that at the end of the video, backing up CMC. You're going to have Algier backing up Bijan. And these running backs are going to get touches. No running back is going to average 30 touches a game this season. Don't worry about it. Really, do not worry. They are going to feature Bijan Robinson. He's going to get plenty of touches. Great offense. It's not something to be concerned about. We've always known Algier was going to mix in. Bijan was never going to get 100% of the touches. Arizona, all three of Dortch, Michael Wilson, and Zay Jones are getting a ton of hype. It's a situation that we want to get right because this offense does have a decent amount of upside this season. As of right now, though, if they're just going to keep hyping up all three of these players, and we already know they're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr., they're going to have Trey McBride, getting more targets than all of these three, we kind of just have to sit back and just see what ends up happening in camp. If you have a take here, take whichever one you like in kind of the final rounds. I think Michael Wilson is the most likely to be the most fantasy viable among those three, but again, all three have gotten really positive reports, so we simply cannot know right now. In Baltimore, last week, it was all about Bateman. This past week, it's all been about Isaiah Likely. Likely's apparently been having a really good camp, is going to have a larger role this season, larger role than just backing up Andrews. They said, he's going to be out there just playing straight up wide receiver. They're going to have them both in the field at times. This is why we can't just start, overdrafting Rashad Bateman every time they talk him up every offseason, because they talk him up every single offseason. They do have a lot of guys. It is still a low volume passing attack. I maintain that Andrews and Flowers are still very strong picks. And while, Bateman, Likely, they're getting hype in camp, they truly, to me, are nothing more than just late round flyers that could absolutely work out, but that we will probably be a bit disappointed with for the most part this season. If either one of those two, Bateman or Likely, sees their ADP go way up because of camp news, because of preseason, I really just would not buy it. I'm not going to pay an elevated price tag because of hype on those guys. In Buffalo, Tyrell Shavers has stolen the show. Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, they're still getting very positive reports. It seems extraordinarily likely that those will be the top two wide receivers, that Shakir, who we've basically known this the whole time, Shakir is just never going to command a target share. He'll be fine in a rotational role. He'll have a role on the offense, but Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, those are the top two receivers. But they have really been talking up this kid. To be fair, Shavers is an unathletic, undrafted rookie free agent that's about to turn 25. So realistically, there's probably nothing here, but it's a name to watch, right? If you're playing preseason DFS, name to watch. But then also someone that if you're just really in on Shakir because you're they got no one else, it's well, I don't know. Maybe this kid can make the team. Maybe he can mix in. But again, I wouldn't be concerned about if you have shares of Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman. I wouldn't be concerned about them. Dalton Kincaid's still going to have a ton of targets this season, but a name to keep in mind. In Carolina, Jonathan Mingo, of all people, has been the surprise of camp. He's apparently been fantastic. He's been outplaying Xavier Legette. He's been playing ahead of him. If the season started right now, it'd be Deontay Johnson as the 1 and Jonathan Mingo as the 2 ahead of Xavier Legette. We will see if that remains. He was, a pretty highly rated prospect last season, early second round pick. I really liked his profile in terms of what he could be if he hit. He was obviously a more risky prospect, and then the entire team fell apart. But he had a very bad season. We can't just throw out how bad he was as a rookie. So I'm not about to go all in on Jonathan Mingo. I took him in like the 18th round the other day because I maintain Carolina is a very good backdoor stack on Underdog. Maybe you took Deontay Johnson. Maybe you took Jonathan Brooks. Maybe you took Chuba Hubbard. If you started off with a Carolina player, I really think ending your draft with Bryce Young along with Jonathan Mingo, or maybe trying to get Leggett and then Bryce Young, I think it's a pretty good stack to have because it's not going to cost you all that much. And if Dave Canales is as good as I think he is, maybe we can have some upside on this offense. But, maybe if you believe in Mingo and you're like, I believe the reports, I also believe in Leggett. Listen, Leggett, Mingo, Deontay, it could be a good wide receiver core that could elevate Bryce Young. And if we're getting the elevation from the coaching as well, if we got a good ground game, maybe there's something to this team. For the most part, I want to be clear. Deontay Johnson is the one that I am aggressively targeting. I'm targeting Jonathan Brooks as well. I wouldn't say I'm aggressively targeting anyone else on this team. In Chicago, Rome Odunze is looking like a superstar. DJ Moore got paid, and Keenan Allen is apparently destroying against zone defense. So unless the Bears defense is an absolute dumpster fire, the expectation is the Bears are going to have 3 elite wide receivers this season. And if Caleb Williams is, the prospect that people have all thought he is, right? People thinking he could be the next Patrick Mahomes, I would be finding ways to maybe invest in the Chicago Bears offense. It could be a spot where we're a little bit annoyed week to week, especially in redraft leagues, because we're like, 1 week it's Odunze, 1 week it's Keenan Allen, 1 week it's DJ Moore. But all of them are going to have upside. I think all of them are pretty strong picks. I still think I would go in reverse order of ADP in terms of how much I like them, because I think, again, all of them are going to have good weeks. All of them are almost equally likely to lead this team in fantasy production. And if anything, I think Odunze could be the most valuable in the second half of the season. So my preference, not my ranking, my preference in terms of the value you're getting at that ADP is Odunze, then Keenan Allen, then DJ Moore. The ranking is the reverse of that, but because you can get Odunze so much later, I think he's my favorite to go after. In Cincy, Jermaine Burton is not a lock to win the wide receiver 3 role like we kind of thought he was. Andre Iosivas is apparently having a phenomenal camp, a phenomenal offseason. They kind of talked him up before camp started, being like, this kid put in the work. Him and Chase Brown really put in the work this offseason. And it's playing out in camp, bringing in Chase Brown as well. Both of those two are apparently doing really well in camp. If the season started right now, Iosivas would be the number 3 wide receiver on the Cincinnati Bengals. He would be starting over Jermaine Burton. We still have, a month and a week or so until opening day. So plenty of time for Burton to take that job. But it seems a little bit more likely than it did before that him and Burton are going to kind of maybe rotate into that 3 role, and then we'll just kind of see how that plays out during the season. Not amazing news if you've been all in on Burton late in drafts. I still think Burton is totally fine to draft late, but something to bring up that he's not a lock to be the wide receiver 3 on this team, at least to start. Also, just again, monitor Chase Brown versus Zach Moss. I still think Chase Brown is the better pick. I think Moss is probably a little more likely to start the season as a starter. But honestly, if camp reports are anything to buy into right now, Chase Brown's been the starter. And I just think, again, Chase Brown goes later by ADP. I would definitely, it's probably 25 picks or so later by ADP. I'd go with Chase Brown. And then Gesicki, apparently he's been playing well, but we've had Gesicki reports before, so he's just a late round flyer. Just like 18th round pick on Underdog. If you feel like doing it as your second tight end in redraft, sure. I wouldn't completely buy into those reports. In Cleveland, we don't have much, but Nick Chubb is apparently doing full speed sprints. He is doing agility drills, and he is cutting through cones. That is one thing that people mentioned when you have that squat video come out, which again means almost nothing. It launches ADP up 20 spots. The squat video means nothing basically to me. But if he's doing that, if he's sprinting and now he's cutting, we're at least trending in the positive direction. Still no timeline. I doubt we're going to really get a timeline because there's no incentive for the team to give us one. But my guess, which is a pure guess right now, but my guess is that he opens on the pup, misses the first 4 weeks, comes back in week 5, and they just slowly integrate him into the offense. And, by the midway point of the season, by the second half of the season, he's more and more involved every single week, and you're trusting him a lot more. At his ADP, I still think that makes him a great pick. Just before recording this, we got the report that Donta Foreman took a hit to the head. He was airlifted to a hospital. Obviously, watch that news. It seems like he's going to be totally fine. Obviously, that's what we're hoping is going to happen. Seems like, again, moving all extremities. He was apparently laughing in the hospital. It seems like it's just abundance of caution what they were doing, which is good. But monitor that because he is someone who could have a role this season, especially early in the year while Chubb is potentially on the pup. So, again, watch that situation. In Dallas, Rico Dowdle's apparently been the best running back in camp. Also, the wide receiver 3 battle is between Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks. None of this should come as a surprise to us. Dowdle has very little competition. I do not believe in Ezekiel Elliott at this point in his career, and we know Deuce Vaughn's not getting a bunch of touches. If I had to guess with the wide receiver 3 battle, I think Tolbert's going to win. He is someone that seems to have actually taken a step forward to be earning the trust of Dak Prescott. But realistically, you probably don't even need to worry about the wide receiver 3 role unless you're playing an Underdog. In a redraft league, I would just say, it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Brandon Cooks. I wouldn't worry about the 3. I don't think they really have a chance to take over there. But if you're playing on Underdog, I think it's Jalen Tolbert. Again, redraft, don't worry about it. In Denver, seems like 3 wide receiver sets are going to be Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Reynolds. So this is Josh Reynolds, obviously, former Detroit Lion. We see Tim Patrick and Troy Franklin rotating in. I do actually think they're going to run a pretty gross rotation where they're actually going to use all these players. And my guess is Troy Franklin is just kind of starting off a little bit slow in camp, and that he's going to pass Tim Patrick. He's eventually going to pass Josh Reynolds, and he'll be the 3. But maybe that takes a while to happen, and he's probably a player that you shouldn't really be drafting Underdog right now, that in redraft leagues, you wait. Maybe come week 5, 6, 7, we start to talk about him, as someone that hey, he's available in 80% of leagues. He's getting more and more snaps every week. Kind of trending towards using him more. I feel like that's the situation, not someone where you grab in week 1, he starts going off and you're like, good thing I drafted, Troy Franklin. I don't think that's going to happen. So in redraft, I don't think you have to go after him more. And I'm starting to warm up a lot more to Sutton. If we kind of look at this team, it's I love Mims as a player, but Mims is never going to command a target share. He's basically just going to be a deep threat for them. So it's if this 3 role is kind of rotation and Mims is only a deep threat, Sutton's target share is super locked in, especially in the end zone. So I don't know. I think I've been just a little bit lower on him than I should be. We do have to remember that, only the Patriots have a lower projected point per game total than Denver. And if we had to pick one area to attack them in fantasy, it'd be the running back. So I don't want us to start going all in on Courtland Sutton, right? It's still going to be a pretty gross, pretty terrible passing attack. But let's not overlook him. Let's actually get him on some teams because he's a solid value in drafts right now. Then with the running backs, no real news on the split. Right now, looks like Javonte Williams, Estime splitting the early down role. McLaughlin doing more passing down snaps. But again, no real confirmation there. In Detroit, Jameson Williams continues to get a ton of hype and is really just the biggest story of the offseason for Detroit. Always been someone they've been super high on long term, but they've really limited his usage in these first 2 seasons. They've always, had things to say about him being he needs to work on this. He's not consistent here. We can't really feature him. It's always been slightly negative tone. They talk about him. This offseason, though, they don't draft competition for him. They do not sign someone in free agency that's competition for him. They talk glowingly about his development, and now he's crushing camp. So, everything has gone from, maybe not someone we can lean on to, no, he's the 2. We're going to lean on him. He's going to have very high weekly upside this season. All signs are pointing to a breakout. He's not going to be wide receiver 1. I mean, if he got super lucky with touchdowns and long plays, I guess theoretically he could be, but he's not going to be someone you put into your wide receiver 1 spot and trust starting every week. But could he be the ultimate flex? Could he be someone that's every other week, this dude's dropping an absolute nuke and maybe the floor is a little bit lower, but in the flex spot, you're totally fine with that because that's a spot where it's you're okay having a little bit more variance because when your flex spot hits and you open up, a 25-point ceiling from the flex, you really get cooking that can really win you some weeks. I think he's a target. I think he's someone we need to heavily go after this season because again, 14 of 17 games in a dome for Detroit this season. They are going to score a ton of points. And Houston, Diggs has been outplaying Tank Dell. It's not a huge problem because like Diggs does still go around ahead of Tank Dell on average. So like the expectation still is that he would score more fantasy points by ADP. Ideally, though, with how much I like Tank Dell, how much I want to draft him this season, how I do have him ranked just a hair ahead of Stephon Diggs, ideally we'd be getting more positive reports. So if this continues, if we come back next week and we say, nope, Diggs is still outplaying Tank Dell, I'm going to flip-flop it. I'm probably going to move Diggs ahead of Tank Dell. I just think in the mid-fifth round, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous right now. But again, mid-fifth round in redraft leagues, I still think Tank Dell is more than worth the risk because it's going to be such a good offense. And he's got more of a ceiling. I still think Diggs is going to be more that like consistent, 9, 10, 11-yard receptions and racking those up. But Tank Dell is going to be the one with the high weekly ceiling and high season-long ceiling if they can consistently get him the ball deep downfield. It's just, again, watch the reports there because it hasn't been amazing about Dell. Nico is still, I want to reiterate this, Nico is their best wide receiver. He is their clear number one wide receiver worth taking first. In Green Bay, literally everyone is playing well. Apparently Jacobs is doing well. We finally have Marshawn Lloyd returning. He's playing well. Watson looks explosive. Dobbs is destroying one-on-ones. Love is hyping up Wicks, and Wicks is making great plays. Reed still looks like they're number one, but only by a little bit. And they're like, top target, but again, it's going to be a consolidated target share and like a condensed target share. There's everything to like. Like you got to be leaving drafts with Packers players. I think this offense is going off. It's like if I had confidence if you gave me 4 offenses to like have super high confidence in, it's like I have confidence in the Packers, in the Lions, in the Chiefs, and in the Eagles. I feel like those 4 right now, I am very confident in terms of fantasy production. You can draft those players and feel very, very good that you've got high floors, high ceilings with pretty much everyone that's like fantasy viable on those teams. I'd be trying to get Packers players and Packers stacks this season. In Indy, as we discussed in yesterday's video, I moved Josh Downs over AD Mitchell in the rankings. It's becoming pretty clear that Mitchell is competing right now with Alec Pierce. I think that's got to be like a week 1, week 2 thing. Like by week 4, week 5, AD Mitchell is going to be the wide receiver 3 on this team. But the fact that he's still competing with that and that they're hyping up Downs so much, and that I, again, watched yesterday's video to get a full take on Downs, but I've been overlooking him. I love him as a prospect. I think we need to be drafting a ton of Josh Downs right now. I'm moving AD Mitchell down, but again, I think he's still going to have long-term upside in this offense. I really like this offense as well. In Jacksonville, Tank Bigsby is having a great camp, but I can't pull the trigger. It's happened so many times in the last week. I get to the late 18th round. I'm sitting there like, well, I could use another running back, and I just stare at Tank Bigsby, and I can't do it. I cannot draft him. He was so bad last season. I understand that they did not bring in another running back, that like if they actually go into the season with only ETN and Tank Bigsby, Bigsby's going to outperform his ADP, and he's going to have upside this year, especially, my goodness, if we had an ETN injury. But like, I don't know. I don't buy it. I truly do not buy that he's playing this well, that they're actually going to use him. They hyped him up last summer. That didn't work out. I think they could trade for someone. Again, it's the players I've talked about before, but they could trade for someone at the end of a rotation. Maybe someone gets cut that we're not thinking of right now, and they add that player. Like, I would not be shocked at all if that happened. That's always been in the back of my mind in round 18. I just can't do it. I know he's getting hype. I can't get behind Tank Bigsby this season. He crushed my soul too much last year. In Kansas City, Deneric Prince has been getting running back 2 snaps ahead of CEH. CEH is just like not a thing. We know Clyde's not good, so it's not like this is shocking. To me, this is just more of a reason to get behind Isaiah Pacheco. I truly do not think that Deneric Prince is actually going to be a thing this season, but I do think that Pacheco is the clear lead back, has goal line and reception upside on a team that could be number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, running behind my 6th ranked offensive line. Like, it is wheels up for Pacheco this season. I would go after him heavily. In Rams camp, seems like their target distribution for wide receiver at least will be Puka, Kupp, Demarcus Robinson, and then Jordan Whittington. Not a name you really need to know that much, but a name to maybe like Demarcus Robinson's probably the 3, but they like Jordan a lot. But if Robinson got injured, like they would throw Jordan in there. So if you're in a super deep league, know his name. But conflicting reports basically on the Puka and the Kupp take. So that's what it seems like is Puka, then Kupp. But there are some reports out there that are like, no, Kupp was injured the last 2 seasons, not really getting healthy, that it's more 1A, 1B with Kupp being the 1A. In my mind, I did the breakdown of Garrett Wilson versus Puka Nacua versus A.J. Brown a couple weeks, maybe a month ago at this point. And I just decided in that video, I was like, Garrett Wilson, then Puka, then A.J. Brown. That was the ranking that I had. Given all the reports that have happened and given the positive reports coming out of Eagles camp and how like we know they're going to be more pass heavy, play faster, and like given everything that's happened since that video, I have now moved it to Garrett Wilson, then A.J. Brown, then Puka. I think there is a decent chance, like literally 50-50 chance that Cooper Kupp could just out-target Puka Nacua. Now, I think Puka Nacua will be more efficient, and so even if, Kupp has slightly more targets, Puka would still be the one you want. And I could not see a world where I move Cooper Kupp ahead of Puka in the rankings, but it's enough for me to say, you know what? Garrett Wilson's awesome. A.J. Brown's awesome. That's locked in. I know Puka is as well, but if there's a chance that Kupp is earning more of a role, it's enough for me to move Puka down. So again, that's how I moved the late first round rankings for those 3. In Chargers camp, Quentin Johnston's been terrible. 3 wide receiver sets are going to look like Palmer, Ladd, and Chark. I am completely out on Quentin Johnston. Chark remains a very strong late round pick. I went over that in yesterday's video as well, but Palmer good and Ladd good as well. In Raiders camp, not much to get excited about, but Dylan, it's Lobb, I think is how you pronounce the last name. He seems to be winning the passing down job. In my opinion, Adams, Myers, Zamir. Those are the 3 you want. Those are the 3 you should be targeting. You can take a shot on Bowers if you want to. He just goes a little bit too early for me to draft him, especially with whose quarterbacks are going to be this season, how they're going to be a run-first offense, how he still has, Adams and Myers are going to command significant target shares. Like, I think Bowers was a little bit too early. Again, Adams, Myers, Zamir. That's who I target on the Raiders. In Miami, no real news, but Jalen Wright has apparently looked really, really good. He remains one of the highest upside picks you can make in the later rounds of both Underdog and in redraft leagues. Mostert, Achane, they are going to be the starters when healthy, but an injury to either one of them, it's like a double handcuff you have for Wright. Either one of them. Wright is an immediate fantasy starter. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing other than that really to report. The team looks good. It's going to be pretty much the same offense we saw before. In Minnesota, we have no word yet on Addison's potential suspension. Jalen Naylor seems to be the wide receiver 3 there. McCarthy continues to battle with Sam Darnold for that number 1 spot. So that's nothing new. I mean, that's kind of news we've kind of had before. I just want to reiterate that even though McCarthy, Darnold, they're battling right now, we don't know who's going to be the guy. Probably just going to open with Sam Darnold and then transition to McCarthy. I still think this coaching staff is so good. I don't really care who the quarterback is. Just please don't overlook Jefferson and Addison. If you want to lean towards Lamb, Hill, and Chase, and even St. Brown ahead of Jefferson in round 1, I think that's fine. Just don't think you can't draft Jefferson or you can't draft Addison because of quarterback play. Great coaching staff. They will elevate these quarterbacks there will be enough production for those 2 to be great in fantasy. In New England, Polk has been fantastic, and Javon Baker is making a case to start as well. Patriots have a ton of wide receivers, but most of them are pretty terrible. I really do think that, at least for most of the season, maybe we get something different in week 1, 2, 3, but I would say for the vast majority of the year, your 3 wide receiver sets are going to be Polk, Douglas, and Baker. They're transitioning to such a young offense, right? I also think Brissett is probably going to open the season, but when we get to like the midway point of the season, they're going to be leaning on these young guys because they know that's the future. They're projected to win 4.5 games. Like, they're not out there trying to make the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, right? So May's going to be the starting quarterback at some point. Again, it's going to be Polk, Douglas, and Baker. That would be the order I would draft them in as well. Polk pretty clearly having the highest ceiling. I don't think we need to target any of them aggressively. I would say in redraft leagues, you probably only need to go after Jalen Polk. And I guess news kind of like attached to that. They said they're going to be a run-first team this year. Nothing screams upside like a run-first offense is projected to win 4.5 games, right? Because they're also not going to play super fast. So it's not going to be a fun offense to watch. That's what I want to reiterate here is it's not going to be fun watching the Patriots this season. But I would target Stevenson because he's the highest upside player on this team. I would target Gibson as a handcuff to Stevenson, and then late on Underdog, I've been taking him, and then Polk. Those are really the three I'd be going after. Everyone else, I don't know. Maybe if you want Hunter Henry as your second tight end, if you're double dipping tight end late, but don't be targeting New England aggressively. In New Orleans, Taysom Hill's going to be a thing this year. He is clearly going to have a massive role in this offense. There's also a chance that Mason Tipton beats out A.T. Perry. That probably doesn't matter that much to anyone playing in a redraft league. I don't think Tipton's someone you're actually going after. But it's at least interesting, right? That A.T. Perry's been such a bust so far, and there's opportunity here, right? Olave and Shaheed are good, but you look at the tight ends, and it's the tight ends aren't commanding a huge target share. Olave will. I don't think Shaheed's a good player, but he's not commanding a 20% target share. I don't know. If Tipton actually won the wide receiver 3 role, maybe he has a little bit of upside. So keep the name in the back of your mind. I would say more for rookie drafts, round 4 pick in a rookie draft. Maybe you can start considering him. But again, he's someone who could not make the team. But right now, he's crushing camp. It's just more don't draft A.T. Perry later on. But yeah, back to Hill. If you play in a league where Taysom Hill can be played at the tight end position, do not overlook him. He's a very strong pick this season. If you look at the rankings, I have him as a quarterback because I think most spots are going to list him at quarterback. But all you have to do is type his name in, look at the projection, be oh, he's projected for, I'm going to make my number, 110 points. You can go in and be where would 110 points be at the tight end position? That's where he would be ranked. And I think it's around Dallas Goedert. He's a very viable pick at tight end if you can play him there. In Giants camp, Theo Johnson, their rookie, seems like he might win their tight end 1 job this season. Probably don't need to draft him, but worth noting. And then Malik Neighbors is going to be the entire offense. They can't do anything without him. Saquon was the whole offense last season. With him gone, with Dayball making a huge stand with Neighbors over Odunze, with someone in the organization wanting Odunze, and Odunze, many people thinking being the better prospect. I think they're both awesome prospects, both going to crush it, but they're going to hyper focus on Malik Neighbors. He's going to have so many targets. He's going to be inefficient, but the upside this kid has, because he is an athletic freak. He is a phenomenal wide receiver. If they're going to hyper focus on him, you got to be getting some Malik Neighbors this season. I will say it's a tale of two drafting sites, basically, for Neighbors in redraft leagues where he is the 25th wide receiver off boards, being taken to pick 52 overall. Great pick. That is a phenomenal value. On Underdog, 27th overall player. Little tougher for me to get behind, so redraft, heavily target him. In Jets camp, Malachi Corley getting a little bit more usage with Xavier Gibson hurt. He's a leg injury right now. He hasn't been playing in camp. Some sparks there. I don't think in redraft you need to go after him too much, but if we get the hype starting with Corley, and if he can, push for the second most valuable wide receiver on this team, could be someone we are looking to in redraft, but not a huge deal there. Overall, I think camp has just shown us that this offense is going to flow through Wilson and Hall. Every single report is indicated that Garrett Wilson is going to be hyper targeted on this team, going to get so many targets every single week, has significant weekly upside, and that Breece Hall is Breece Hall. He's going to be awesome. But yeah, exciting rookies, Braylon Allen and Malachi Corley, but just late round flyers right now. In Philadelphia, Devonta Smith has been used a lot more in the slot than he has in previous years. A lot of people have mentioned they're going to use A.J. Brown in that CeeDee Lamb role. Again, my take has been they're going to use Devonta Smith more in that area. Devonta Smith is a phenomenal pick this season. Jalen Hurts has also been seen doing a lot of play action, doing design runs. Again, want to reiterate, I have faith in this Eagles offense. I don't have faith in Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator in terms of an NFL perspective. I don't know if he's that good of an NFL offensive coordinator in winning football games, but for fantasy, they're going to play fast, they're going to throw the ball a ton, and they're going to hyper focus on A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and then also Dallas Goedert will get his, but the passing offense is going to be A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and then a cliff into the next most passed player. Draft them. They're going to be awesome this season. Pittsburgh, Roman Wilson, week to week with an ankle injury. I feel like that's our first like really big injury in camp so far. Fantastic news. We're knock on wood here that we haven't had too many injuries. To be honest, he wasn't even the locked-in wide receiver 2 before that. Like, it was trending in that direction, but when a rookie misses that much time in camp and already wasn't number 2 on a low-volume, inefficient passing attack, if you've been taking flyers on him, I don't know why, but if you want to do an 18th round pick, sure, I would just pass on Wilson this season. Again, when a rookie misses that much time, it is not great. And when he does return, he'll be coming back from an ankle injury. One thing is, we've also seen Justin Fields make some headlines. I've never bought into this narrative that like Russell Wilson is a locked-in starter, that Fields isn't going to start this season. Like, Justin Fields is, I would bet on Justin Fields making at least one start this year. Apparently, with Wilson missing a little bit of time, Fields has been mixing in with that first team, has looked pretty good. Again, overall, I don't really want Pittsburgh players. Like, in order of like where I would prefer them, again, not by where I'd rank them, in order of like my preference given their ADP, it's probably Pat Freiermuth, then Pickens, then Warren, then Najee. But I wouldn't say I have a significant share of any of them. Like, I would probably mostly avoid the Pittsburgh offense this season, especially like Pickens is the one you'd want, but he's going super early in drafts. In San Francisco, Ricky Pearsall is back at practice. That is great to see. Jordan Mason is also pushing Elijah Mitchell for that number 2 job, as alluded to before. That is super important. Like, a lot of people are going to want to, draft McCaffrey, be like, okay, I'd like to handcuff him because I want to know that I have this kind of locked up. Usually it's been, okay, just draft Elijah Mitchell and you got that handcuff. We don't know right now. Like, we genuinely don't know if Jordan Mason or Elijah Mitchell is going to win that job. So for right now, you kind of have to pump the brakes on Mitchell because that could just be a wasted pick. We'll see. We'll see how that shakes out in future weeks. Maybe we get, more of an indication who's going to win that job. Oh, and we don't have any sort of news on a Brandon Ayuk deal, so remains to be seen over there. In Seattle, surely have nothing. I've not heard anything from Seattle camp. So far, it seems Fant's having a good camp. Seems like JSN's playing well, but it's been very quiet in terms of the Seattle Seahawks reports out of camp. Seems like everything's on track as normal, but truly we don't know. In Tampa Bay, Jalen McMillan is tearing up camp. Bucky Irving looks pretty good as well. I wish McMillan was still going as late as he used to be early in the summer, but he's still a great pick. I think McMillan is locked in as a wide receiver 3. I really like this whole passing offense. I think Evans goes a little bit early, but I love Godwin. I love McMillan if you want to take shots on this passing offense. I still have hesitations that without Dave Canales, maybe they take a step back. But yeah, I like Godwin, like McMillan. I like Bucky Irving as a sleeper, and I think Bucky Irving caps the upside of Rachaad White. In Tennessee, nothing. A little bit of Treylon Burks hype, a little bit more confirmation that Pollard and Spears are going to be used pretty interchangeably this season, but other than that, nothing else. And then finally, Washington Commanders. Looks like Jane Daniels is good. Now, early in camp, let's see in the preseason. Let's see if he can continue throughout camp. Also, the Commanders have a terrible defense, so it could just be kind of that. But McLaurin seems pumped. Like, McLaurin's talking very positively about the deep ball accuracy, specifically about Jane Daniels, and that's super important. We know the mobility is there. We know that sort of upside is there. It's always just been like, can anyone just get the football to McLaurin? Because McLaurin's a good wide receiver. Seems like Daniels can't. And if that's going to be a thing where he's going to be super mobile and he's going to be hitting deep to McLaurin, and maybe he can get Jahan Dotson going a little bit as well. Like, I've always talked about the top 10 quarterbacks this season being ones that I want, and I've cut it off with Jordan Love as a quarterback 10. If Daniels is going to run it as much as we think, if the offense is going to run as many plays as we think, if he's going to be as good to deep ball as is being indicated, and if their defense is going to be as bad as we think, that is significant weekly upside, a lot of garbage time points as well. Maybe I need to start considering my ideal range of quarterback being the top 11 and kind of extending that to Jane Daniels. And then one more thing, Ben Sinnott, bad. Apparently he's having a really bad camp. If you've been taking him as like your last like tight end in drafts, stop doing so. So that is the biggest news from every team in camp. Again, if you like this format more, be sure to let me know. Leave a like if you really enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section as well. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm going to be dropping a new video every single day till the start of the season, so why not subscribe? It is completely free. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Thanks for watching.